Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Lesson number 14 today. First word is ruthless. Ruthless, I don't have to explain it. I think cruel, merciful, merciless, cruel, merciless, and synonyms are brutus and callous. Callous is somebody whose heart is hardened. It doesn't feel anything. It doesn't feel compassion, and it may not even feel beauty. It's just like unfeeling heart. It's just like dead. It's not dead necessarily. It's just almost dead. Antonym: civilized, humane, and merciful. The next word is contempt. Now, contempt is scorn, disrespect. Contempt is like if somebody hates somebody else, and to the extent that if they look at them, they like make a face. It's like, and then that's like intense dislike. So contempt is like intense dislike. And there's a sentence here, and I kept this because I thought this is an important word to know. Xenophobia. Xenophobia is a contempt of people from other countries. So xenophobia, I mean, people who, for example, if they're not from their country, they automatically they think they are worthy of disrespect, if that could be said. So like people have a stereotype about people from Mexico or from India, Pakistan. That's xenophobia, a dislike or hatred of other people simply because they're not from our country. Xenophobia is contempt of people from other countries. Xenophobia, the word phobia is fear, right? So arachnophobia, for example, is like fear of spiders, and claustrophobia is fear of closed spaces, etc. So xenophobia also has a connotation of like fear of foreigners. For example, fear of foreigners that are coming over and flooding your country because you think they'll take your jobs. So it's not a fear in a sense that it is you just don't like them just because. It is fear because you don't like them because you think they'll take your jobs or something. So xenophobia is a very important word, unfortunately politically pertinent. The third word here is callous, as we talked about, hardened, insensitive heart. So, as I said, callous means is somebody who's got a heart that is unfeeling either way. It can't feel good and it can't really feel bad. They just have no feelings. It's just like they lost their nerves that feel the different spectrums of human emotion. Synonyms: insensitive, dispassionate. Dispassionate is an interesting word. See, dispassionate means somebody could do their work dispassionately, without passion. It's like they go in, they clock in, and then they clock out. I mean, they go through the motions in life, but there's no passion there. That's dispassionate. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're callous or cruel. It's just they're dispassionate. They don't have passion about it. It does not necessarily have a negative connotation. Insensitive, on the other hand, does. Antonyms: compassionate, empathic, and sympathetic. As you probably know, the difference between sympathy and empathy. Sympathy is when you can relate to other people's suffering. Empathy is a higher degree of sympathy in that you can relate to other people's suffering because you've been through it. I can't say, for example, that I can empathize with a woman, giving childbirth because, obviously that I can't empathize with it. I have sympathy with it, I have compassion with it because it's a tough time, right? So that's the difference between sympathy and empathy. Empathy is something that you can relate to because you've been through similar experiences. And it has therefore greater meaning to the person to whom it's directed. The next word is sadistic. Sadistic is taking pleasure in the pain of other people. This is a cruel, inhuman feeling. Is when people actually enjoy seeing other people suffer. It's hard for me to even imagine how deprived they made themselves from the mercy of Allah. So sadistic, taking pleasure in the pain of other people. Barbarous, barbarous. The word somebody's barbarous. It comes from the Roman uses. The Romans, anybody who they thought were not Romans were barbaric, and so everybody else outside the Roman world were barbaric. And so the barbaric host from the north, so from the east, the west, etc. So that's where the origins of the word barbarous or barbaric comes from. Savage is you see these are synonyms. They're weak synonyms in a way. Sadistic has its own peculiar category of despicable words. Savage, on the other hand, is like animalistic, like image, like an animal. Somebody who behaves like an animal is savage, ruthless. Antonyms: civilized, humane. The next word is supercilious. It comes often enough, and it's not being super silly. It means being super arrogant. So supercilious is full of haughty arrogance. Somebody who's supercilious walks and behaves arrogantly. Synonyms: haughty and cavalier. Now, cavalier is a different connotation. It does not have the same meaning. Cavalier sometimes, frequently in fact, has a positive connotation. Cavalier is being a gentleman. So somebody's behavior was cavalier means they were actually potentially even like brave, and they're trying to do a good deed. Cavalier can also mean foolhardy or foolish, and they're being arrogantly brave, that type of thing. Cavalier. So it does not necessarily have the same connotation. Antonyms: diffident, unassuming, humble. See, diffident is interesting, nice word to know. Diffident is not caring either way, being indifferent, and unassuming. And we have seen that word before. And humble. So supercilious is you might think it doesn't show up, but it just kind of seems to show up at different times. It's not super silly, but super haughty and super arrogant. The next word, idiosyncrasy. Idiosyncrasy are peculiarities, a peculiar trait or habit. Idiosyncrasies are individuals' different predilections for certain habits, a peculiar habit of individuals. A quirk, a synonym, a quirk. Affectation is like, if you recall, is pretend to be something that you are not. Eccentricity is oddness. Somebody's eccentric, they have certain oddities, eccentric, outside the normal, outside the usual, I shouldn't say normal, I should say usual behavior of people. Einstein, for example, has some eccentricities, you would say. He was always like disheveled, right? That's a little eccentricity of Einstein. Singularity is a very interesting and beautiful and important word. It has many different meanings. Singularity is something that's different, one thing that's different about a person. Singularity has, on the other hand, has many other meanings. In the world of science and physics, singularity actually refers to the very beginning particle of the universe. I mean, and the Big Bang occurred, according to the theory of Big Bang. The Big Bang started out with tiniest subatomic, the tiniest size of a condensed amount of energy, which contained all the energy that ever would be in the universe. And that little entity that exploded to give this vast universe, and that entity would to be the tiniest entity. If you put it on your fingertip, you wouldn't be able to see it even then, because it's the tiniest imaginable particle. So singularity is that thing from which the universe started, and that's another name, that's a noun of singularity. But here, singularity means a peculiarity, something that's different from other things. The next word, anomaly. Anomaly is an unusual event, something that occurs once in a while, right? Unusual event, outside the normal pattern. Anomaly is outside the normal pattern. His late arrival was an anomaly. Otherwise, he's nearly always 15 minutes early. I initially had written this sentence in slightly differently, and you can use your imagination, but I thought I would be positive and say his late arrival was an anomaly. In other words, the young man. Not that this has anything to do with any of my wonderful students who always come on time and slightly early. His late arrival was an anomaly, otherwise he's nearly always 15 minutes early. Hint, hint. Synonyms: aberration. Aberration is also means that slightly outside the normal pattern. Aberration. Irregularity. Antonyms is regularity. Opposite of regularity is irregularity. The next word is incongruous. Congruent is to be the same, right? Congruent is to say. Incongruous is not the same. Incongruous is not the same. So incongruous behavior is behavior that is not appropriate for the circumstances, is inappropriate for the circumstances. So incongruous is inappropriate, not keeping with a pattern. Incongruous. Dissonant, right? That's another word. Fetter, to tie up, to chain. Fetters, yoke. We have the word that we've seen before, yoke. To fetter is to chain. So the slaves would be fettered in the ships, below the ship's deck, as they would be brought on their long journey, for example, from Africa to the Americas. Fetter is to chain and tie up. Synonyms: shackle. Shackles are chains. Hamper is to hinder. Okay, hamper is to hinder. His progress was hampered by his illness, right? You can say his progress was hampered by his illness. Hindered, or shackled is to chain. Notorious also probably does not need much explanation. Notorious is somebody who's famous for bad things. Yeah, like Al Capone is notorious. Notorious. Famous for bad things. Infamous is another word. Infamous is famous in a bad way. So somebody who's infamous, like Al Capone, is famous, but he's famous for doing bad things, right? You can come up with a lot of names that are infamous. Disreputable. Okay, somebody who is respectable, right? And there's somebody who's disreputable, means they have a bad respect. They're known for, unfortunately, their bad, unrespectableness. So disreputable is somebody who does not have a good reputation. These are important words. Decry is to speak out against. To decry is to complain, to speak out against. Decry is to speak out against. Synonym: vilify, condemn. Vilify, condemn. Vilify is the next word here. Pay attention. Pay attention, pay attention. Vilify, to slander, to defame. To defame means to try to make somebody unfamous, right? To put insults on them. So defame. So vilify is to slander and to defame. Synonyms: denigrate, I think we have seen that before. Malign, libel, and calumniate, or calumny, to cause calumny. So vilify, slander, to defame. Heinous. Heinous. Heinous is cruel and unusual. Heinous crime. Terrible. It's not just a crime, it's an awful crime. Heinous crimes. It's cruel and unusual. Synonyms: atrocious, monstrous. And revile. Last word here is revile. To denounce abusively. So it's like to give somebody a denunciation, to speak against somebody, but speak in a very abusive way. To give somebody a really down session, so to speak, but in a very abusive way. Now there are lots of words here. They're all kind of like not nice words, right? But they describe not nice things, right? So callous, sadistics, decry, notorious, and vilify, heinous, revile. These are words that are descriptive of behavior that is not nice. There are times in life when you have to actually speak out against heinous things, against things that are atrocious, notorious, and you have to be able to articulate your thoughts and words. And how are you going to do that if you don't know how to describe the evil that you see? So encouraging good and forbidding evil requires us to be able to describe the evil in the most strongest terms, that we sometimes would need to. And for that reason, we have to know these words. Okay, on with the sentences. Number 1, contempt. Contempt, intense dislike. Contempt is the weapon of the weak, and a defense against one's own despised and unwanted feelings. This is a very interesting statement, and a very important one, I think. Contempt is a weapon of the weak. So this person is saying, they're saying that people who have this intense dislike, it's a quality of their weakness. Contempt is a quality of their weakness, okay? They're hating somebody because they're weak. They're defending themselves. Okay, it's their defense against what? Against one's own despised and unwanted feelings. Okay, it's like somebody might have contempt against somebody because there's nothing wrong that the other person did. They just don't like them because they have something out of envy and hasad and things. They have contempt, right? So they're saying contempt is a weapon of the weak. It's what weak people do, and it's they're trying to hide their own feelings that they don't want to expose themselves to. And you have to understand, you have to evaluate in life, and you have to see why you have bad feelings if you do against some other people in the world. And 100% of the times, really, it's possible to find excuses for the other people. You can condemn wrong, but you don't have to hate the person. See, you can encourage good and forbid evil. You can forbid evil all you want, but you're not hating the person. That's not the teachings of religion, right? So there's no room for contempt and bad feelings. You can contempt the sin. So hate the sin, but not the sinner, as the saying goes. And this is from a pure psychological point of view. I like to suggest to you, from a medical psychological perspective, feelings like that are hurtful to a person long term in a subconscious level. In my belief, you can either be happy or anxious and sad, but you can't be both at the same time. In a similar way, you can't hang on to these feelings and have a healthy outlook on life. So it's better in general not to hate anyone in the world, but rather wish that they would turn around and inshallah join you on the Day of Judgment in Jannah. Why would you want anybody to go to hell anyways? Right? If you could save everybody, that would be nice, right? Inshallah. Allah controls people's hearts. Nevertheless, next sentence, number 2. Only the liberation of the natural capacity for love in human beings only the liberation of the natural capacity for love in human beings can master their sadistic destructiveness. I think there is a typo here, and I think only the liberation of the natural capacity for love in human beings can they, I think that they should say, can they master the sadistic destructiveness? Well, right. So what they're saying there is that people, you think about it, millions of people died, right? In world wars. I sometimes ask people how many millions of people you think that died in World War II, and a lot of people just don't know. Estimates vary. It's like 60, 70 million people died. I mean, that's just awful. That's an awful statement to make about the nature of human beings. That they can do such destructiveness they can bring such destructiveness upon each other, and that's almost sadistic. It's almost like they enjoy it. That's what they're saying over here. It's like it's almost like they enjoy killing each other. Astaghfirullah azim. So, but you have to understand why such things happen, and that's what the angel said, right? Okay, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said we're going to make they're going to make Khalifa, they said, are you going to place their line? I'm going to paraphrase. Some people are going to cause fisad, and then they're going to cause corruption, and they're going to kill each other. That's what the angels kind of predicted, But then Allah's response to that was, I know something you do know. I mean, there's more going on here than meets the eyes. there's an undercurrent to history, and this is the scum that's always very visible. But the beauty of the historical process is the undercurrent, what happens beneath the noisy surface, and there's great beauty still in the world. All right. So next, number 3. Once conform. This is Virginia Woolf. Once conform. Once do what other people do because they do it, and a lethargy steals over all the finer nerves and faculties of the soul. She becomes all outer show and inward emptiness, dull, callous, and indifferent. This is a very beautiful and a very profound statement, and I hope you appreciate it and take the time to understand and reflect on this. What she's saying here is that once you decide to do things just because other people are doing it, once you decide to conform, that's what conform means. Once you decide to do stuff just because everybody else is doing it, okay, and especially if it's against you, or if you're not inclined to do it, okay, then something happens inside of you, okay, and and something happens, and that something that happens is not necessarily a positive thing here. Now, there's one thing to emulate others when they're doing good things, right? But even if you're doing good things, your heart has to be in it. Your heart has to be in it. So once conform, let's see what she's saying first. Once conform, once you decide to do things because other people are doing it, once do what other people do because they do it. Okay, and what happens as a result? She's saying a lethargy steals. This is how beautiful it's right. A lethargy, weakness, right, steals over all the finer nerves, all the more finer nerves, beautiful, sensitive nerves, and the faculties of the soul. Now look how she says, this lethargy does not steal over your body, not your physical body. It steals over your soul. Your soul becomes lethargic, okay? And it takes away from the beautiful aspect of your faculties, of your senses. Something happens to you. Your soul is deprived of its energy. She becomes all outer show, and this person, right? This person becomes all outer show. They become like show, and they have inward emptiness. Right? It's not genuine. It's all outside. They become dull, they become callous, they're unfeeling. This is very profound. She makes this conjecture. If you know Virginia Woolf, she's not an ordinary writer. She is some of the most important modern writers, okay? And they're saying they become callous, they become unfeeling. And if you reflect on yourself, and if you've had similar experiences before, you can tell. If you do something just because other people are doing, something happens to you. You lose the ability to discriminate between feelings of different types, right? And you become indifferent. You just kind of right? And the way to correct this is to do things because you want to do it. And then this is, if you allow me to digress here, and because it is important, see, you can do a good thing. So the end result is that you're doing a good thing. I'm labeled that with a G. But if you're doing it because other people are doing it, and then if you're doing it because you want to do it, correct? The end result is that the person is doing a good thing. So let's say there's a person who's doing it because of the wrong reasons. They're doing it because everybody else is doing it. Okay? Let's say you find yourself over here because you're doing something right now only because everybody else is doing it. But you wish you could do the same thing but over here of your own volition, of your own choice. But how do you go from here to here, right? Because you're already on that track. I'm sure many of you can relate to this in some way. So you're doing stuff because other people are doing, but you're doing a good thing. So it's not like you should like stop doing that good thing, right? So how do you jump the way, and then how do you put your whole heart and soul into that? Okay, I find myself in this, because I'm human. I have found myself in circumstances like this, and this is what Allah has guided me to. Even at a young age, I was doing things kind of like because of emotions, and I said to myself, the answer is this in my mind, for myself. See, sometimes you have to understand your humility, humility as a concept. See, people are doing good things not because they're stupid. They're doing the good thing because they figured something out that you haven't figured out. So you have to understand that for myself, I would say to myself, I'm doing this just because, but I know that's the right thing to do. The answer to this to me is, I have to say to myself, I'm just plain stupid. These people figured it out. I haven't figured. Allah hasn't gotten me to this. I'm just going to go through the motions until I figure it out. So you have to understand that you haven't figured everything out. And if Allah has guided you to go through the motions, just go through the motions until Allah guides you further. Right? So that's how. But if you understand this concept, how this happens, and Virginia Woolf is saying, I think it's easier. May Allah make it easy for us. Number 4. I'm not this callous clown walking around laughing at life all the time. This is John Lennon, a very smart dude. I'm not this callous clown, means unfeeling clown walking around laughing at life all the time. So people might look at him and saying, this guy's, he's a clown, he's just always happy, he's laughing, right? He's saying, I have had some serious problems in my life. He's got the humility, he's got to admit that he's got problems. That takes courage in itself. I've had some serious problems in my life. And then he says, but I've come out with a smile. Right? So I am where I am. You see me happy, not because I'm less callous, I have no feelings. It's because I've been through some tough times, but I had the courage to go through them. I had the sensibilities to go through them with some grace and poise, and I've come out of them with a smile. Number 5. They equally detest the pageantry of a king and supercilious hypocrisy of a bishop. Junius, they're talking about somebody, and they're saying they're equally detesting. What happened here? Number 5. They're talking about somebody, and they're saying they equally dislike the pageantry of a king and the haughty hypocrisy of a bishop. So these are people who this might be like a Sahaba. They dislike the pageantry of kings, the kingly ceremonies, and the haughty hypocrisy of bishops, of people who claim to be religious, but they're also going through the motions. Number 6, friendships are born from tolerance of idiosyncrasies. That's been true in my experience. In other words, people become friends when they're able to tolerate the little nuances or what other people might find annoying about other people. Right? If you're able to tolerate the little nuances or little nuisance of other people, little frailties, and who's perfect, right? And then you make a lot of friends. If you're picky about other people, they have to be perfect for you to be your friend. Then you'll have probably very few friends, right? Because really, nobody's perfect, and the more you get to know people, the more frailties, more weaknesses you discover of them. Choose your friends wisely, on the other hand, and you stick with the people who are good, and occasionally they slip. That's just human adventures. Next, number 7. People live with their own idiosyncrasies and die of their own illnesses. This is Vietnamese poem. This is a very interesting statement, and what I take from it is the following: people live, everybody's worried about, their weaknesses. Everybody has weakness, so they're very self-conscious about their weaknesses, their own idiosyncrasies. And then in the end, they're going to die of their own illnesses. It's like, who really cares, right? You're going to have your own particular idiosyncrasies. You're going to live through it. Then you're going to have to. Then you're going to have some of them until you put in your grave. So how long are you going to obsess about them, right? So somebody just get over it and just go on with life, so you can correct those things that you wish to be corrected. Number 8. We still think of a powerful man as a born leader and a powerful woman as an anomaly. Margaret Atwood. This is interesting. It's talking about gender roles, how people perceive men differently as compared to women. So they're saying we still think of powerful men as born leaders, and when a woman's powerful, strong, and assertive, it's an anomaly. They're not inherently like that. That's what they're saying. Number 9. The moment a slave resolves that he will no longer be a slave, his fetters fall. His chains fall. The moment a slave resolves that he will no longer be a slave, his fetters fall. Freedom and slavery are mental states. Freedom and slavery are mental states. Now, this is true. This is very true. And, all the great people of the past who have been slaves in their life, or have had any understanding of slavery as a despicable human institution, all of those who have understood that has said this. Okay, they have said that slavery is a state of the mind. All right, like Malcolm X, for example, and like Frederick Douglass, for example. So these people have said it's all in the mind. It's like when you change the software, now you can have chains in your hands and feet, but you are not a slave anymore. So slavery is a mental state, and this is a very important thing, and this is very important for us to understand, is that that slavery is a mental state. I gotta tell you one more thing about this before I stop. The slavery as an institution outside the Islamic world, and you can't compare the Islamic world to the rest of the world. So because the experience of slavery in the Western world is very different than anywhere else in the world. Now, slavery, nevertheless, as an institution, authors have noted, has never survived. Populations have been enslaved. Whole set of populations have been enslaved, but they eventually found a way of getting out of it. Always did. Slavery never survived. This shows that Allah has built us, hardwired us to be free. Why would Allah hardwire us to be slaves of anybody else? Because we are supposed to be Abdullah, and it is a term of endearment. It is as an honorable term to be Abdullah, to be the slave of Allah, because it is that we are designed, hardwired, never to be slaves to anybody. But slavery, you must understand, is a condition of them. You must free. You must say, I shall obey Allah only. And then if you have some reservations as to that, then you have to really understand how free you really are. You may not have chains in your hands and feet like Frederick Douglass did, and he was lashed, his mother was killed, and etc. You may not have gone through that, but there is a mental slavery where you don't have the courage to exercise your mind, right? So this is something to consider. Number 10. We all decry prejudice. We all speak against prejudice. Like, you should not hate people. You should not, all kinds of prejudice. We all decry prejudice, yet are all prejudiced. Herbert Spencer. This is a very interesting, profound statement to make. For example, so we all like to think that we're not prejudiced, but you know how many times I've been to parties where people made fun or said negative statement about Hispanic people. I'm talking about Muslim parties, where the people have made jokes about of Sikh people, or Sikh, the Sikh people, or Hispanic or black people. I mean, I find that despicable, really. I find that it's not. First of all, it's not the character of a good Muslim to do that, right? And it's extremely distasteful, right? I've never make a stereotypical joke. I never make jokes about Polish people, Hispanic people, or anybody, or whatever, or blind, whatever. People do that, right? That's a very despicable human behavior, in my mind. Why? Really, why? Because don't you think somebody goes to some other party makes fun of Indians and Pakistanis and Muslims? Really? Are we going to emulate that? Then just like that, how free are you really? How free are you if you stoop to that kind of behavior? Right? We like to think. So this is in some ways very true. We all decry prejudice. We all speak against, but we have to look to our own self, see who we really are as people. Number 11. To vilify a great man is the readiest way in which a little man can himself attain greatness. Edgar Allan Poe, considered one of the greatest poets of all time. To vilify, okay, to make somebody look bad. To vilify a great man, that's what is great man. To vilify a great man, to speak against great people, is the readiest, it means the quickest, fastest, easiest, fastest way little men can attain greatness. In other words, trivial people, if they want to sound fancy, they vilify great people, right? How many times have you seen that, right? Okay, I don't want backbiting. This stuff a little thing, but that's what people do all the time. Unfortunately, I protect myself, and and he's saying little people talk bad of big people to make themselves feel better. Number 12. Many heinous crimes, many horrible, inhuman, barbarous crimes have been committed in the name of freedom and justice. Okay, these words, freedom, justice, liberty, democracy, are sometimes misused and to rile up people's emotions. Okay, they're like words of magic. It's kind of like a person who does a card trick in front of you to distract from the real part of the trick, right? It's like smoke in magic shows. It kind of distracts, it clouds the real issues at hand. So you have to be careful when people are using big fancy words like freedom, democracy, justice, and happiness of others and all of that. But what you have to do is you have to demand data. You have to go you have to go a little dig deeper, see what's really going on. All right. So people have done lots of bad things by saying we're going to go free these people. We're going to bring democracy here. We're going to do this and etc. But they're being very hypocritical. They have a different agenda on their hands. Hypocrites have loyalties too. Hypocrites also have loyalties. In other words, they know and their buddies know that they're lying, but nobody says anything. That's the thought. Number 13. It is not he who reviles or strikes you who insults you. This is a beautiful statement. Epictetus. It is not he who reviles you who insults you. It is not he who reviles you or strikes you who insults you, but your opinion that these things are insulting. Beautiful. He's saying it is not the person who insults you or strikes you who insults. It's not he who reviles or strikes you who insults you. It's not that person who does that, but it is your opinion that these things are insulting that you're insulted. This is a profoundly important statement. Because honestly, you hear so many negative things about Muslims being said, right? Plain and simple, a lot of negative things being said. See, it's not those people or those things that they said. It is your opinion that those things are insulting. It is your opinion that those things actually matter that makes those things insulting. So people say a lot of things, they've said a lot of things, they'll say a lot of things. But really, who cares? I mean, dogs bark. That's what dogs do. If a dog comes smiling at you, it's just a kind of weird thing. So people say bad things, and they have done that, they are doing this, and they will do it again in the future, because that's what they do. But if you give that opinion any weight, then you're giving opinion to filth that the filth does not deserve. Right? So this is the beauty of philosophy. People think philosophers and they're just people who just think a lot and they do nothing. But no, they think about important things that like little people like me don't think about. It is not he who reviles or strikes you who insults you, but your opinion that these things are insulting. Epictetus. Until next time, as-salatu was-salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi. Assalamu alaikum.